Welcome back. Let's get to our 2020 roundup. Could the reasonable Republican dad be the key to victory for the Democrats in 2020? Supporters of Joe Biden are making the case that he can reach across the partisan divide. Well, look, here I am. I know that, I hear that he is a Republican dad, right? And so I understand one of my favorite Republican dads, John Kasich, who is the former governor of Ohio. He thinks this is Joe Biden, that he can reach across the aisle. So, Nicole, what do you think?
I don't really know what a Republican dad is. I thought that was very odd when I saw that. However, I will say that, I've said before on this show that I think that the never-Trumpers would be more inclined to vote for Biden if Biden was on the ticket. If you have Elizabeth Warren on the ticket, I think never-Trumpers may not show up to vote.
Right.
So, I personally think that it would behoove them to put a more moderate Democrat on their ticket.
Michael, are you buying what she's selling?
No, I mean I'm
Hey.
with you. I'm with you that no Republican is going to vote for Biden, and certainly not Warren. And having the endorsement of John Kasich, my dad was a postman. I don't know if you guys
be
knew
nice
that
to John
about
Kasich.
it.
I knew I threw John Kasich out there. And
Oh, you have to.
jump
I'm a
on him.
Buckeye too. I'm from Columbus. I have a personal animosity for Kasich. No,
John Kasich.
no. John Kasich.
Well, this is not the
owes me an
Kasich
apology.
debate.
It's not.
This is
But,
the Joe Biden debate.
This is a Democrat Christmas wish. Right? They're like, oh, please, please, please let there be Republicans who will vote for Biden. No.
And
We're just,
Dana,
hoping
do you
he
think
doesn't
anybody
embarrass
can get the
himself.
Republican dad vote, or Republican
Well,
dads
I think that
this is
I think this is misguided a little bit. I think that there are probably like a total of like 200 of these possible votes in the entire country of 335 million people. There's
not going to flip an
there's
electoral
not,
college vote?
There are not the idea that there are a bunch of never-Trumpers left. It doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. Democrats and the media
publicly
cling
there
to
are,
it,
but not
and it
privately.
doesn't really exist. There might be a few, but if they had said Republican moms, I think that actually might be more doable for somebody like Biden because of the suburban vote. But when you start, let's say it does become Biden, when you start having a debate on policy, it's not that he's that conservative or moderate. His policies are actually quite progressive.
Do you think that, Jesse, that there's a running mate that he could pick? So say Biden is the nominee, that there's a running mate that he could pick that could get, someone such as yourself, for example.
Well, I would
twice?
be a unreasonable Republican dad because I'd never vote for Joe Biden ever. And I think he's aiming at the wrong slice of the electorate. He's got a problem on his left wing. He needs to shore up the left wing before he starts crossing over for these independent, reasonable Republican voters. And by the way, Trump has a 90% approval rating among Republicans. If they do go head-to-head in a general, I think Trump wins more reasonable Democrat dads than Biden wins on that side.
Well, it is a billionaire media blitz moving on. 2020 Democrat Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer have been saturating the airwaves by spending nearly $200 million combined so far on political ads. Now, Dana, you know that, a lot of the socialists in my party are not huge fans of billionaires. Do you think that this is something that is going to be,
They have to walk,
is this going to be held against?
I think they have to walk a little bit of a tightrope because they don't like them coming into the race. And Michael Bloomberg was able to buy his way in and hit 5% without having to do any of the legwork that the rest of them are doing. Like, it's not hard for him. So I think there's probably some resentment, but they also need his money. He has been able to flip a state like Virginia. Because, and that means that's a big deal if you want the Electoral College. And I also think that if you look at somebody like Governor Pritzker of Illinois, so he was running against the incumbent Governor Rauner, and Rauner's pretty unpopular, but Pritzker basically he was willing to spend all his money. And he won in the end. And so now he's the governor of Illinois. So it's not unprecedented. It's harder to do on the national level.
How do you know all these names?
because she is experienced.
The early bird gets the worm, Michael.
She's experienced and effective when it comes to politics and knowing all the names. Maybe she's got flashcards at home. So, Nicole, I mean, Dana brings up a good point that, there actually have been some successes of individuals that have pretty much self-financed their campaign. I mean, let's be honest, President Trump is a billionaire, too, and seemingly he got Democrats
not
to cross over.
self-funded. He didn't self-fund all of his campaign, or No, he didn't.
Not
Yeah,
much.
he didn't want
Not
to.
much.
Yeah, he
Trump
wa-
spent a nickel
yes.
compared
Well,
to
because he
Hillary.
had a lot of earned media. But the thing is,
Right.
I'm talking about billionaire versus billionaire. Seemingly, there are Democrats that say they don't like billionaires, but there are Democrats that crossed over and voted for a billionaire in Donald Trump. Do you think those same people might see somebody like Bloomberg, I mean, Steyer or whatever, but like Bloomberg is somebody they could vote for?
Maybe, but hold on. I just want to get back to Steyer for a second because this infuriates me. This man is worth $1.6 billion, and yet he pulls in less than 2%. And one of his big plans is he wants to pay farmers to lessen their carbon emissions. That's a big thing for him. Guess what he can do with that $80 million worth
to
of
farmers?
ads? Why doesn't he have a private funding of these farmers to lessen their carbon emission? Actually do something for the country and stop politically
Hey,
posturing.
I am all for investing in anaerobic digesters, Michael. Do you believe in anaerobic digesters?
Oh, absolutely. It's how I live my life. Thanks for finally catching up to the. I like the ad agencies. That's the business I want to be.
Absolutely.
The guy who go into you go to Bloomberg and Steyer and like, dude,
Right.
you can do it. You just need some more ads.
Yeah, well,
Spend some more
speaking of
money.
ads, Jesse, do you think that the Tom Steyer impeachment ads have moved anybody?
No, I feel bad for people in these early states that have to watch Bloomberg and Steyer on TV every time they
Yeah.
turn on the
Yep.
television. $200 million, a lot of wine caves, Capri. Can buy a lot of caves and a lot of wine. I actually added it up. Bloomberg's worth $56 billion. So if he's just spending $200 million, we'll round up. You know how much that is? That's 0.3%
Right.
of his net worth.
Wow.
That's like the average person who makes $50,000
Well,
a year
speaking of-
spending $178 on a
Speaking
political
of people that
campaign.
aren't necessarily down with socialists, the real question is the burn back finally in this roundup? Democratic insiders are reportedly taking Bernie Sanders very seriously after initially writing him off the socialist chances in this 2020 election cycle. Some are even saying that, and they're taking a second look, floating the possibility that Bernie could actually outright win the nomination. I am not one of those people. I do not think that Bernie Sanders is going to win the nomination. Dana, what are
I think he
your
has
odds?
a little bit of a new lease on life.
Literally and figuratively?
Yeah, well, he had the heart attack, but he got the AOC endorsement. She's been out there campaigning for him, and because the early states are not winner take all and it's proportional,
Right.
he could possibly get there. But the Republicans would like nothing better.
I tend to agree with that, Michael.
I think Bernie's
Do you feel the
fade.
burn?
No, I don't feel the burn. I think Bernie's the only one in the field that's the least bit authentic. He genuinely believes the BS he's selling.
Nicole?
Well, I do feel the burn every time I listen to Bernie Sanders speak, but I think it might be indigestion. But
that's a good one from the doctor.
You know what? The thing is, he's not very vocal in the media, which is why people aren't attacking him as much, which is why I think he's polling better. I don't think he's going to be the nominee because that would be a Republican.
Jesse, I want to give you the final word on this. The burn.
I think he could force his way onto a ticket, a unity ticket, like Dana said. No one's going to hit that threshold because of winner take all. They get to the back room in Madison, Wisconsin. He gets the second place number of delegates. They unify the party. Bernie Biden.
Wow. Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.